A man boarded a plane carrying nothing but a briefcase. Less than 30 minutes later, he hijacked the aircraft, demanded $200,000 in cash, and disappeared into a violent storm from 10,000 feet above the ground. More than 50 years later, no one knows who D.B. Cooper really was. Some mysteries are solved. Others are buried forever. Welcome to Mystery Vault. November 24, 1971. Portland International Airport. It was the day before Thanksgiving, one of the busiest travel days in America. Families rushed through the crowded terminal, excited to celebrate the holidays. Hidden among hundreds of ordinary passengers was one man dressed in a black business suit, carrying nothing more than a small black briefcase. His face looked calm, ordinary, forgettable. He walked to the Northwest Orient ticket counter and quietly purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle using cash. The ticket carried a simple name: Dan Cooper. At that time, airports had almost no security. No metal detectors. No baggage scanners. No ID verification. Cooper passed through the airport without attracting a single suspicious glance. As Flight 305 prepared for departure, he calmly walked toward the boarding gate. Nobody realized that this ordinary passenger would soon become the center of America's greatest unsolved aviation mystery. At exactly 2:50 p.m., Northwest Orient Flight 305 took off with 136 passengers and 6 crew members on board. Cooper quietly settled into seat 18C near the rear of the Boeing 727. He ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and stared out of the rain-covered window. His movements were slow, controlled, and confident. While passengers chatted, read newspapers, and enjoyed the short flight to Seattle, Cooper remained completely silent. Nothing about his behavior suggested panic or fear. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't excited. It almost felt as if he had rehearsed every second of what was about to happen. Unknown to everyone on board, the real journey had only just begun. Just a few minutes after takeoff, Cooper quietly called one of the flight attendants, Florence Schaffner. Without saying a word, he handed her a folded piece of paper. Assuming it was the phone number of another lonely businessman, she slipped the note into her purse without even reading it. Cooper leaned closer and calmly whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Frozen in shock, Florence slowly unfolded the paper. Written in clear block letters was a simple message demanding her complete attention. Cooper then quietly opened his briefcase just enough for her to see several red cylinders connected by wires and what appeared to be a battery. Whether it was a real bomb or not, no one dared to find out. In that single moment, Northwest Orient Flight 305 was no longer an ordinary passenger flight. It had become the most dangerous aircraft in America. Unlike most hijackers, Cooper never shouted, never threatened passengers, and never caused panic inside the cabin. He remained polite, calm, and surprisingly respectful. He instructed Florence to sit beside him and carefully write down every demand. Cooper wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. He warned that if his demands were ignored, he would detonate the bomb. The cockpit was immediately informed, and within minutes the FBI and local authorities began preparing for a crisis unlike anything they had ever experienced. As the aircraft continued circling in the sky, negotiations quietly unfolded below. Every decision had to be perfect, because one mistake could cost dozens of innocent lives. As Flight 305 approached Seattle, the passengers had no idea what was happening behind the curtain separating the cabin from the cockpit. To them, it was just another delayed flight. But outside the aircraft, the situation had become a national emergency. FBI agents, local police, airline officials, and government authorities rushed to Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Every minute mattered. They gathered exactly $200,000 in $20 bills, carefully recording every serial number in hopes that the money could someday lead them to the hijacker. 4 parachutes were also delivered to the airport exactly as Cooper had demanded. No one wanted to risk giving him fake equipment. The fear was simple: if Cooper discovered the deception, dozens of innocent passengers could die. At 5:39 p.m., Flight 305 finally landed in Seattle. The airport looked almost deserted. Police vehicles remained hidden in the distance while airport lights reflected off the wet runway. Following Cooper's instructions, the aircraft taxied to a remote section away from the terminal. Through the cabin window, Cooper watched every movement outside. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't impatient. He simply waited. Within minutes, the money and parachutes were brought to the aircraft. After carefully checking everything, Cooper allowed all 36 passengers to leave safely. One by one, they stepped off the plane without realizing they had just survived one of the most dangerous hijackings in American history. Yet the mystery was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. With the passengers gone, only 4 crew members remained on board: the captain, the first officer, the flight engineer, and flight attendant Tina Mucklow. Cooper now revealed the next phase of his plan. He ordered the aircraft to take off again, this time heading toward Mexico City. But there were strict conditions. The plane had to fly below 10,000 feet, at the lowest safe speed possible, with its landing gear partially deployed and the rear staircase left unlocked. The pilots warned him that such a flight would require a fuel stop before reaching Mexico. After a brief moment of silence, Cooper agreed. The aircraft would first fly toward Reno, Nevada. At exactly 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 lifted off once again into the dark, rainy night. This time, there were no passengers, only a hijacker, a terrified crew, and a mystery waiting to happen. As the aircraft flew through heavy rain over the Pacific Northwest, Cooper calmly tied the bag of cash around his waist and carefully inspected the parachutes. He instructed Tina Mucklow to enter the cockpit, close the door, and never come out unless he called for her. Before she left, she glanced back one final time. Cooper appeared completely calm, almost as if everything was going exactly according to plan. Inside the cockpit, the crew could do nothing except monitor the instruments and follow his instructions. Then, at approximately 8 p.m., warning lights indicated that the rear staircase had been lowered while the aircraft was still in flight. A few minutes later, the pilots felt a sudden upward movement, as though a heavy weight had disappeared from the back of the plane. No one opened the cockpit door. No one saw what happened. But somewhere in the darkness, D.B. Cooper had made his move. When Flight 305 landed safely in Reno at 10:15 p.m., FBI agents immediately surrounded the aircraft. Every second increased the tension. Officers carefully boarded the plane, expecting to confront an armed hijacker. Instead, they found nothing. D.B. Cooper had vanished. The cash was gone. 2 parachutes were missing. The rear staircase remained lower. There was no body. No footprints. No fingerprints that investigators could positively identify. It was as if the hijacker had disappeared into thin air. Within minutes, one of the largest manhunts in American history was launched. Hundreds of FBI agents, police officers, military personnel, helicopters, and search teams spread across the forests and mountains of Washington state. But despite an enormous search, not a single trace of Cooper was found. Investigators believed Cooper had jumped somewhere over the dense forests near the Washington-Oregon border. But the conditions that night were almost impossible to survive. Heavy rain. Freezing temperatures. Strong winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Complete darkness. Cooper wore only a business suit and loafers. He had no helmet, no protective clothing, and very limited skydiving equipment. Many experts believed no experienced parachutist would ever attempt such a dangerous jump under those conditions. Yet there was one problem with that theory: if Cooper had died during the jump, where was the body? Search teams spent weeks exploring forests, rivers, valleys, and mountains. They found nothing. No parachute. No briefcase. No clothing. No human remains. The mystery only grew deeper. For years, the FBI chased every possible lead. Thousands of suspects were questioned. Professional skydivers, military veterans, airline employees, and former criminals all came under investigation. More than 800 people were considered potential suspects. Yet every promising lead eventually collapsed. In 1980, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram made a shocking discovery while digging in the sand along the Columbia River. Buried beneath the surface were 3 bundles of $20 bills. The serial numbers matched the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. It was the first physical evidence ever connected to the hijacker. But instead of solving the mystery, it created even more questions. How did the money reach the river? If Cooper drowned, where was the rest of the cash? And if he survived, why would he leave part of the ransom behind? Decades passed, but the mystery refused to die. Countless books, documentaries, and investigations tried to uncover Cooper's true identity. Some believed he was a former military paratrooper. Others claimed he was an experienced airline employee who understood the Boeing 727 better than anyone else. Several suspects appeared convincing, but none could ever be proven beyond doubt. In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the D.B. Cooper case, admitting they had exhausted every realistic lead. To this day, nobody knows whether Cooper survived the jump or died somewhere in the wilderness. His real identity remains unknown, making him the only unsolved skyjacking case in American history. More than half a century later, D.B. Cooper is still one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Some mysteries leave behind evidence. Others leave behind only questions. D.B. Cooper left behind both, and perhaps that's exactly why the world still can't stop searching for the man who vanished into the night. Because some mysteries are solved. Others are buried forever. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore more of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join Mystery Vault.